So in this video, Snehal Pradhan will talk you through the differences between swing and seam bowling.
Thanks, Neil. So one of the main differences between swing and seam bowling, or let's start with the commonalities first, is that they both depend on this bit of thread that makes the cricket ball unique in most sports. Most sports balls, for example, don't have this defining factor, but in cricket, everything is determined by the seam if you're a bowler. What you want to do as a bowler is to get good consistent seam presentation, which means to get your wrist firmly behind the ball, allowing your seam to stand nice and upright and consistent all throughout its path until it hits the pitch. Now, what happens there is, according to your natural style, the seam will be in one of three positions. Either it will be standing straight up, which is what it was like for me. I was a seam bowler. This is the typical release for a seam bowler. If you're a natural outswing bowler, so that's a right arm outswing bowler to a right hand batter, your seam will just naturally point towards the first slip. When you let it out, even if you hold it straight, your wrist position and your action will be such that the seam points there. And if you're a natural in-swing bowler, the wrist position and your action will just naturally point the seam there. So first step to understand the difference between seam or swing is to figure out which one you bowl. So have a look at your seam position, and if you're getting the seam to go dead straight, you're most likely going to be a seam bowler. And if you're getting the seam to travel at an angle, you are probably going to be a swing bowler. What happens is, imagine then the seam. Let's talk about swing first. Imagine the seam is like a rudder. So the minute, if you've been on a boat and you put the rudder into the water, and the minute you turn the rudder, the direction of the boat changes. So because you have that angled seam, for example, if you're an outswing bowler, you're angling the seam towards that first slip. As the ball cuts through the air, as the ball just moves like that through the air, because it's at that angle, the ball moves. The ball moves because of a difference in air pressure between the two sides. Now, this is swing. This is swing, and the critical difference is that the ball moves in the air before it hits the pitch. Similarly, for a natural in-swing bowler, because your angle, your seam presentation is such that the seam points just towards a leg slip position, it acts as a rudder as it moves through the air, and the ball will just drift in because of the difference in pressure between the two sides. So again, in swing, the ball will move in the air. What typically happens with a seam bowler is that you present your seam dead straight, and because the seam is nice and straight, and hopefully if the pitch has got a little something in it for you, once the ball hits the pitch, the ball moves off the seam. Now, this is seam bowling. The critical difference from swing bowling is that the movement happens after the ball pitches. So the ball moves off the pitch, either in or out. It's fairly unpredictable, and that's not a bad thing. If you don't know where the ball is going, the batter doesn't know where the ball is going either. So that's something that you can use to your advantage. Talk about the upsides and downsides of both. Swing bowling, you need certain conditions for both, but in swing bowling, what happens is it's easier to get if you have that natural action, but it's also easier for the batter to pick because the ball starts moving straight from the hand. So from the hand, the batter gets an idea of which direction the ball is going to go. Seam bowling, it's slightly harder because you depend on the pitch, you depend on how the seam of the ball interacts with the pitch. If there's a little bit of moisture in that pitch, you will get the ball to jag in or out, and you can be very dangerous on those kind of pitches. But if the pitch has absolutely nothing, then a seam bowler sometimes can be limited. But the upside is that the ball moves very late. So if you get the ball in the right length, that means that after pitching, the ball moves and the batter has literally no chance to adjust to that movement. Whereas in swing, you can spot the ball swinging quite early, and you can adjust to that movement. That's the critical difference between seam bowling and swing bowling. And you might think as a young bowler that the grass is greener on the other side. You might think that I'm a seam bowler and I want to be a swing bowler because swing bowling seems to be easier, but there are pros and cons on both sides of that fence. What I would advise, whether picking seam or swing, is to stick to your natural style. As you go up to the elite level, you can transition almost. Catherine Brunt of England moved from being a swing bowler to a seam bowler. Jimmy Anderson is very good at getting the ball to swing in the air and then seam off the pitch. So as you go up into the elite programs, you can develop the other side of that skill. But if you're a young kid and you're thinking about whether I should be a seam bowler, whether I should be a swing bowler, go with your natural style. It will get you to a level if you're good enough. Consistency and discipline is probably the most important thing for you right now. And then as you work up the ladder, you can develop new skills which will incorporate the other side of that aspect.